I'm Laura Calder, and this is my husband Peter, and we're back answering questions from newsletter readers. If you don't get the newsletter, you can sign up on lauracalder.com, and while you're at it, you can sign up for these videos too. Notice we're in the garden. Isn't it lovely to be outside at last?
You may hear a car alarm go off or a
Various
leaf
noises,
blower,
dogs,
something.
coyote might come down the path, but anyway, we'll handle it.
Stay calm. The first question comes from Mimi and Joel, who happen to be the wonderful people who edit these videos for us. What do you do with balsamic vinegar? All we know is dipping bread in it or making vinaigrette. We have a whole bottle that I must have bought for one recipe, and now I don't know what to do with it.
I have one of those. Anyone else? Balsamic vinegar I have not used, I have to say, in a long time. I was thinking how funny it is how things, a new product comes on the market and you're crazy if you don't use it. And then 5 years later, you're crazy if you do. So it's hard to win with these things. Of course, there are various qualities of balsamic vinegar. Most of the ones at the grocery store are cheap, but that's what I happen to have. So I would say one thing you can do with it is boil it down so you get kind of a sweet, rich glaze. Maybe this is a bit dated too, but it's good on stuff like beets with goat cheese or things like that. I think that's one way to get rid of a lot of it in one go. Good for marinades. It's a rich vinegar, but for a beef marinade or a chicken marinade for something for the barbecue, that would be nice. It's also really good with onions, like confit onions. You add a little at the end. Or I've also seen, I think I've even made this, a kind of shallot tartatin, where you put balsamic and thyme in the base of it, and it makes a nice, rich first course. And the last idea I can think of, and I haven't done this, at least not in years, but people used to put drops of the good stuff anyway on strawberries. And since it's strawberry season, you might try that out. I don't know, do you have any brilliant ideas?
No, back in my zany bread eating days, I actually really liked dipping good bread in good olive oil and balsamic vinegar. I know that. I
never got the vinegar part of that.
I loved it, so I don't know.
I hope that helps, but if anyone has any brilliant balsamic vinegar recipes, please, so we can all get rid of those bottles on the shelf.
Next question is from Dale Soares. This is a very controversial question, so sit tight. I've got a question about inviting friends who are terrified of your dog over for dinner. Our golden retriever is very well behaved and wouldn't hurt a fly, but for some odd reason our friends freak out when our dog barely brushes past them. It's quite stressful and tiresome when you have to constantly keep your dog away from guests on top of everything else going on. Their fears have escalated ever since they've had a child and protect him as if he's about to be gobbled up. Locking the dog up is not an option, but we also, like our friends, would love to hear your thoughts.
This is a tough one. Dog owners can pitch in, but Dale, your job is, as a host, is what? It's to make people feel comfortable. And if people are really uncomfortable because your dog's coming over and sitting on their feet or doing whatever, some people just don't like having animals touch them.
A fear of dogs for some people is a real thing.
Some people actually have a fear. I have a niece who would climb up even as a kid, just like if a dog came along, she'd be sitting on your shoulder before you knew it. So that's a genuine fear. But I think I don't particularly like when an animal I don't know, for example, is on me. So if I'm uncomfortable, then I'm not having a good time. So if it were my situation, I would put the dog away. Your sister has a dog that's quite
my sister
friendly.
has a very bouncy Vizsla who loves to greet everybody, and it's got to be at least a minute-long greeting. But we all know him now. But they got him trained. If we're eating and it gets out of hand, she crates him, and it's not complicated. The dog has been trained to go in the crate and is comfortable there, and doesn't whine and isn't upset about his plight. And I mean, to me, I just want to be much more blunt about this. If you're going to host someone and you have a dog and they don't like the dog, then you've got to put the dog away. You've got to put the dog in another room or in a cage or do something. It's really on the host. And I love dogs. I'm always happy to go somewhere that has a dog.
But there's a place. It's not, you don't want one around the dinner table, I think. That's my feeling. But, maybe you have dog lover friends who wouldn't mind. So, but you might have to make a bit of a compromise, I think.
If you're going to be a host, you got to be a host, and that means making your guests comfortable. And it's not about them making you comfortable.
It's not about making your dog comfortable before your guests, I guess. I think. Is that fair?
And I don't understand why locking the dog up or putting him outside is not an option. I've never heard of such a thing.
They can go in a nice room. It doesn't mean that you have to put them in a mousetrap.
A mousetrap?
I don't know. Well, it's not an unpleasant situation to go lie in another room for a while, is it? I make you do it all the time.
The bottom line is, if you're the host, you've got to be the host, and you've got to make your guests comfortable and do what it takes to do that.
That's right. Sorry, puppy. Sorry, Pooch.
I love dogs.
I can take up this one because we talked a lot about food last time, and you said you want a celery soup recipe and you want an almond cake recipe in the next newsletter. So I can put those there. They're not really quite seasonal, but if you insist, I'll give them anyway. But some nice person called Liv Tough sent in a recipe for using up celery, and here's what she said to do. You take a fennel bulb, remove the fronds but keep them, chop them up, and so you thinly slice the fennel, and then you thinly chop 4 celery sticks. Same thing with a Granny Smith apple. Toss it with the fronds and all the rest of it, and dress with just lemon juice, olive oil, salt, and pepper, and she says it is delicious, and she loves it with sausages.
She says she puts dill too.
Oh, and dill.
Dill would be important.
Thank you, Liv. I will try that, because that's the kind of thing I love to eat.
Less controversial question.
Yeah, I hope.
From Tracy Brown Simmons. Regarding plate warmers, are they a worthwhile purchase, or is a quick 60-second jolt in the microwave just as good?
I'm not a microwave fan.
We don't have a microwave.
We don't have one anymore, and I'm not sure I like the way it heats dishes. I find it heats up fast and cools down just as fast, so it's kind of a waste of time. You might scald yourself for a second and then your food's still cold on them, in my experience. I have been given plate warmers, like sort of cloth things that you plug in, and I've never ended up using them. But what I have found useful are, but ugly, are big, what they're not called plate warmers, hot plates, I guess. And if you have a dining room situation where you serve on a buffet, which is really convenient at dinner parties, because then you're not running in with serving individually, you can just put them down, the plates are warm, you move the plates to the side, you put out the serving dishes, and then people go up and serve themselves on a warm plate. So that's really great. But it would be even greater if someone would design a stunning, sleek, modern hot plate that we could use without feeling like
1972 at your
leave it
aunt's
to
house.
Beaver. So
they have not advanced. The hot plate has not moved
the
forward.
hot plate has not entered this century.
Well, the problem too, though, is if you don't want your plates too hot. If it's a buffet, because then people can't carry their plates
No,
from
that's
the buffet
true
to
too.
the table.
And you don't want every plate hot.
You just don't
either,
want a cold plate, right? I mean,
unless you're having salad.
unless you're having salad. But I mean, just
Et
warm
voilà.
them in the oven.
Or warm them in the oven. So I would say I don't think hot plate warmers, unless someone differs. If someone thinks they're fantastic, please tell us why, and maybe we'll all be racing out to buy warm plates, but we might not have to worry about it right away because salad season is upon us. Anyway,
Well, that's it.
that's it this time. Thank you for your questions. I hope the garden was okay, not too noisy. We like it out here, and hope to see you next time. Please subscribe if you want to be notified, and don't forget the newsletter on lauracalder.com, and you'll get all the news the first of next month. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, my little garden gnome.
It's me,
That's you.
little garden pixie.